Hi guys, it's Nathan with Chapman's Quarantine Activity number 13, and that is growing flowers. So, a lot of people like to start their plants inside several weeks before it's warm enough to move them outside. And then when the plants are tall enough, they start taking them outside just for an hour or a couple hours or whatever to harden them up so they can tolerate being outside full time. I'm one of those people too. I started doing it about 3 years ago, and it's just a nice way to have, first of all, something neat to look at every day, have something to look forward to, and you can be kind of responsible for some beautiful things in your space, which considering how much time we're spending at home, it's really neat to have things that are pretty around you. So I have purchased over the years different trays. There's a small tray for 12 plants. There's a little bigger tray that has, I think, 36 plants that go in there. And then I've got this really big tray that, I don't know, it's 70 some. Anyway, I save this one for the plants that I like to have an awful lot of, because I really want to have a tray with the same flower growing in the whole tray. I tried to mix it up one year, and some of the plants grow faster than the others, and at certain times you have to raise the lid of the tray, and it just gets kind of difficult, and it robs some of the plants of their opportunity to grow. Anyway, you fill these trays with the little pellets here, and this pellet is, I'm going to take I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but it's just about a quarter of an inch thick. So I was curious. I looked this up, and this is filled with something called sphagnum peat from a sphagnum peat bog. And I thought to myself, well, of course it is. And then I went to Google and I looked it up. Turns out that peat is kind of usually it's a moss. It's a kind of a plant life that's decomposing. And it is a particular kind called sphagnum peat. And you can find it in a peat bog. And so, of course, I had to look up what a bog was. It turns out a bog is a wetland. Other wetlands would be like swamps and marshes. And so they get this stuff for the pellets in a sphagnum peat bog. Of course, I had to look up how to pronounce sphagnum because it's got an awful lot of letters in it that don't look like they belong together. So anyway, you put these in the tray, and then it says to add warm water, and I went ahead and filled up this cup with right up just about to the 4-cup mark. It takes a lot of warm water to get them to start to get fully expanded. And the last one I just did, it took probably 2 to 3 cups, and you just pour this in here, and those little pellets, they get kind of squirrely. Looks like I'm putting an awful lot in here, but they will soak up all of them. And along the way, I kind of poke those jokers back down because they like to float up. It's kind of like a game of whack-a-mole, and eventually you just give up and you let them float until they really start to expand. And when they expand fully, the pellets grow until they're about 1.5 inches. This one is one that I did earlier, and you can see that it is, in fact, about 1.5 inches tall. Now, I have another video that I can post with this that actually shows you them expanding, but I don't want to take too much of your time up. I'm going to go ahead and move this over. I bought a whole bunch of different flowers, and some of them are ones that I've tried before that are really user-friendly, and some of them I've never even heard before. So this particular one is coleus, and it's just beautiful. It does have a flower, but it's not really known for its flower as much as it is the colorful leaves. I'll go ahead and mount this over here. I put the pellets, once they've expanded, in a tray, and you can see, I hope, you can see that the moss in there is nice and dark, and it lets you know when it's time to get some water, because that dark moss turns light brown, and then you just add more water, it soaks it all up, and it's ready for a while. You start out by covering them in the sun, and it'll get all foggy. It's actually starting to get foggy right now. And then you watch them. And while you're watching them, you can take pictures or, get yourself all excited every time you see them start to grow. Some people like to give a little bit of encouragement to their plants, and it could be, cheerful encouragement, like, oh, hi guys, it's a beautiful day. I bet all of you are going to grow a 1/4 of an inch today. Cheerful. Or maybe bribery. So what I read on the packet is that you guys tend to grow within 7 to 14 days. And I'll tell you what, if you grow within 7 days, there's an extra shot of Miracle Grow for you. So bribery might work. Competition is another possibility. So I was just overlooking at the petunias, and they're at 1.5 inches already. I bet if you put your stems to it, you could make 3 inches before they do. Maybe pathetic. Grow! Just grow! Please grow! Grow! Threatening. All right, so I expect you all to be grown within 7 to 14 days, or mark my word, I will yank you all up and feed you one at a time to the rabbits while the rest of you watch. Humor. So a duck walks into a general store, goes up to the counter, and he asks the clerk, "Do you got any duck food?" And the clerk says, "No, we don't have any duck food." So the duck turns around and he walks out of the store. The next day comes along, the duck walks in the same general store up to the clerk, and he says, "Do you have any duck food?" And the clerk says, "No, I don't have any duck food." So the duck turns around and walks out. The third day, the duck walks into the general store and he says, "Do you have any duck food?" By this time, the clerk's pretty upset. He says, "Listen, you stupid duck, the next time you come in asking for duck food, I'm going to nail your feet to the floor." So the duck turns around and he walks out. The next day, the duck walks in up to the counter, asks the clerk, "Do you have any nails?" The clerk says, "Well, no." The duck says, "In that case, do you have any duck food?" Or maybe you can talk to it like it's a journal, I tell you, I was sitting there, and when the waitress brought up my drink, it was in one of those kind of funny girly glasses. And I said, "Oh gosh, does it have to be in a girly glass?" She looks right at me and she says, "You're sitting there wearing salmon-colored shorts and you're worried about drinking from a girly glass?" Yeah, I know. Well, I did the only thing I could do. I laughed out loud and then I gave her a bigger tip. So whatever method you use to encourage your plants to grow, you just make sure you keep track of the color of the moss. When it turns a little bit lighter brown, then you want to add water. And part of the way through, when they start to poke up, you keep the cover on. You just make sure that it's propped open a little bit, and eventually you take the covers off. And I do recommend you spin them around so that as they grow toward the sun, I think that's called heliotropism, growing towards the sun, that helps them kind of strengthen up too. So it's certainly a fun way to pass the time, and interesting to see how far they've grown each day. Talk to you soon.